Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. The temperature outside is 52 degrees Fahrenheit, so fall has finally arrived where I live. In this video, I'll talk about The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy, which is the Victober group read for the month. The book begins with Michael Henchard and his family traveling through the English countryside as he looks for work. Henchard is unhappy with his lot in life and thinks that if he had just stayed single, he'd be rich and successful. One night, he gets way too drunk and he ends up selling his wife and daughter to a sailor. The next morning, he regrets what he has done, but it's already too late. Some 20 years pass, and Henchard becomes a wealthy grain merchant and the titular mayor of Casterbridge. He's rich and successful like he's wanted, but the consequences of his past actions start coming back to him.
In autumn, airy spheres of thistledown floated into the same street, lodged upon the shop fronts, blew into drains, and innumerable tawny and yellow leaves skimmed along the pavement and stole through people's doorways into their passages with a hesitating scratch on the floor, like the skirts of timid visitors. This is a really beautiful description of the town of Casterbridge. It's almost like one of those small, quaint towns on the Hallmark Channel where nobody locks their doors. The story itself is not Hallmark by any means, though.
So at some point, things start going very downhill for Henchard, and he begins wondering whether there's some higher power working against him. And he's not the only one who thinks of this. Other characters mention things like fate, providence, and a malignant star. I don't think Hardy is sold on supernatural explanations. He writes that events only seem curious, but in fact they are concatenations of phenomena wherein each has an accounting cause. He also writes that character is fate, and the full title of the novel is actually The Mayor of Casterbridge, The Life and Death of a Man of Character. So it seems like it's not supernatural powers that determine your lot in life, but your character. But that begs the question, what is character? Is it something that you're born with, meaning that your fate is sealed from birth? Or is it something that you can intentionally change over the course of your life, meaning that you have free will? Or is it something else? I don't know, but I'm going to take a break for afternoon English tea at the local tea shop. So back to character. Even though the book mentions fate a lot, I don't think that Hardy is denying free will. For example, when he writes about a seedy neighborhood in Casterbridge, he says that among the thieves and criminals there were pure and virtuous souls who were there only due to necessity. But if nobody had free will, then everybody would be there due to necessity because nobody would be responsible for their actions since they weren't free to choose one way or the other. Also, when Henchard rationalizes his own bad act as something that he couldn't help doing, Hardy points out that he's lying to himself. So fate may be character, but I don't think Hardy is denying the existence of free will. At least he keeps it ambiguous whether or not there is free will. What is not ambiguous is the relentless way that he chucks one disappointment after another at his characters. I think one of the lessons of this book is how to properly handle disappointment. Henchard obviously doesn't set a good example, but there is another character in the story who experiences similar kinds of setbacks that Henchard does: loss of family, a rival taking away a love interest, a rise and decline in financial situation. And that character is Elizabeth Jane, where Henchard is compared to Achilles or Bellerophon, Greek heroes who suffered for their pride. Elizabeth Jane is compared to Minerva, the Roman equivalent of Athena, the goddess of wisdom. So, as Henchard rages at every setback, Elizabeth Jane accepts them stoically, seeing them as a natural part of life. Because she doesn't expect permanent success, she doesn't do the kinds of reckless things that Henchard does in order to sustain it. By the end of the book, Henchard still hasn't learned this lesson of stoicism, but you still feel really bad for him, at least I did. There's a sense that his punishment was disproportionate to his mistakes. And overall, I really enjoyed this book, and I definitely recommend it to anybody who's interested in the kinds of themes that I talked about here. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.